My father, who abandoned me after my mom's passing, reached out years later asking me to take in the 4 kids he had with another woman because he's on his deathbed. His new wife had also passed away, and he said it's the least I could do for my birth giver. I'm a 26-year-old woman. I have to tell you about something that recently happened in my life. My father, 49 male, wants me to take care of my 4 half-siblings, but I turned down his request. He is harassing me and calling me unreasonable, but I don't think I am being unreasonable. I have been going through a lot, so I need to vent somewhere about it. It's all a little strange and I'm having a hard time processing everything, so please bear with me. My father called me out of the blue to dump some heavy responsibilities on me. He informed me that he was dying and didn't have much time to live. In that same speech, he told me that he wanted me to take care of his 4 kids, my 4 half-siblings that he had with his second wife. Apparently, there's no one else who can take them in. His wife had been dead for a while now, and they never really had much of a relationship with their family. Hell, they didn't have any relationship with me either. I guess I should tell you guys that I haven't talked to my father in a while. I have been no contact with him for over 10 years. Yes, I know it's a very long time. I had to cut him out of my life because I didn't have an option. He had been busy with his new life, with his new wife after my mother passed away from cancer. My father made it pretty clear that he didn't want to spend his time, energy or money on me. His new wife was more precious to him. They got pregnant with their first child pretty fast. Things progressed from there and, well, you know the rest. 4 children later, my dad didn't even want to pretend that I was his child. I mostly grew up with my maternal grandparents. They are long gone now as well. I started to live with them when I was 14. Yes, I was a teenager when my dad told me that he could not be in my life anymore since he had too much responsibility towards his other kids. I let him go then. Actually, let's be real here. My father is the one who didn't want me in his life. He was content having a brand new life with his wife and family. He has no use for me, his firstborn and the remainder of his first marriage. He didn't want to remember marrying someone before his precious second wife. He didn't want to think about how he cheated on his sick wife with his mistress, who he married as soon as his first wife was dead. I do have my doubts that his second wife was the one who insisted on him distancing himself from me. She wasn't particularly a nice lady. I don't want to insult a dead woman too much but, well, she wasn't a loving stepmother or anything. From what I had seen in those few years, she would rather pretend I didn't exist at all. She must have been exceptionally happy when my father left me at my grandparents' place and never went back for me. 2 days later they went to Hawaii, so I'm guessing that it was a celebratory trip. Who knows though? I'm just speculating, but you have to agree that all of this sounds and looks suspicious. I was super hurt and sad. I even cried for my dad. Thinking back makes me laugh. I was stupid and desperate. One of my life goals is never to be that desperate for anyone or anything again. I learned my lesson the hard way. I became an orphan after my mother died, and that's what I always considered myself anyway. My grandparents were my guardians. They were good people, but they will always be only my grandparents. I won't lie and say that my father was always a bad father. He had been pretty decent, although a little emotionally absent towards me. I didn't mind because that's how it had always been. My mom more than made up for my father's emotional absence. I guess my father decided to up his game and become physically absent as well so that he didn't have to take over mom's role. I may come across as a nagging, bitter person, and maybe I am. It's just that I feel like my father never really repented. He never apologized or tried to reconnect. He just dropped me out of his life and pretended that I never existed. Now he wants me to be his other children's parent. It's just so unfair. Still, I'm being called selfish and unfeeling by some of my paternal relatives and even some friends. I know that the kids are blameless here, but I really don't want to step in and be their guardian. I would rather have that part of my life stay in the dark. For the past few days, I've been feeling a little conflicted about all this. All the bitter feelings about the past are not helping the situation at all. Also, my father is still sending me messages and voicemails trying to convince me to take his kids in. I am so exhausted right now that I don't know what to do. Internet strangers, help me out a little. Tell me what you think of my situation. I would like some unbiased opinions here. Ultimately, it is my life and I will do what I decide, but I would really appreciate some perspective on this situation. Just going to hop by and answer some questions and address some false assumptions. Some of you seem to think that my father is going to set me up financially so that I would be able to take care of my half-siblings. That's not the case at all. He is still going to leave everything to his kids while I get nothing. He made sure I knew that so that there wouldn't be any confusion. I don't think he can leave me much anyway since he is not that well off. Truth be told, I am doing way better than him. Having 4 kids and an unemployed wife isn't going to take you very far in life. My father wasn't and still isn't a millionaire either, so it makes sense that he doesn't have much money with him. Anyway, I would be taking care of all 4 kids on my own. Some of you suggested that I seek government help. Now let's be real here, guys. Government funding won't be enough for the kids anyway. I would have to dive into my savings and take care of the kids with my own money. I really don't want to do that right now. Whatever little money I had has been saved up so that I can buy a house for myself. The house my dad leaves will be in the 4 kids' names. I will never have any claim over it. There will be no money of any kind that would help me raise 4 kids. One of them is a young teen, but all the others are pretty young. I actually have doubts that I am financially capable of raising all 4 kids at all. We will have to see about that. Also, I have no interest in reconciling with my father at this point. He isn't too interested in that either. He only called me because he needed something from me. He absolutely lost his mind when I said no. He called me a bunch of names and stuff, so there is no love lost there. Even as I'm typing this edit, I'm getting an influx of messages from my dad calling me the worst daughter on the planet. I have some questions about whether he is qualified to call me his daughter anymore, but oh well. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for reading my story and giving me some helpful advice. I didn't think people would read this, and I definitely didn't think people would offer their support, sympathy, and advice. I think you can tell that I am an extremely lonely person. My mom passed away when I was 14. My father, or rather my birth giver, abandoned me the first chance he got. My maternal grandparents who raised me after that also passed away 4 years ago. I don't have a partner, and the few friends I have are not that close to me. I already told you that some of these friends are calling me selfish for not doing the right thing for the kids. I really didn't have anywhere else to go. I have been pretty content with my life so far, even if I felt lonely at times. I had this drive to stand on my feet and make a good life for myself. I frankly didn't have much time to stop and dwell on the fact that my father abandoned me. I learned to grow a thick skin a long time ago. I'm sorry if I'm coming across as an extremely selfish and detached person. I have received countless DMs and some comments that call me a heartless witch because I don't want to take in my own half-siblings, but all those comments were severely downvoted, so I'm going to mostly ignore those. Yes, I agree that to most of you, empaths, I may come across as the worst person on this planet. Maybe I am a horrible person for not taking the kids in. You may say whatever you want, but the fact is that I'm also human. I have feelings and emotions. I have wants and wishes. My wish is not to be burdened by the mistakes of my father. He shouldn't have burnt all the bridges with his family. I am not responsible for his actions and whatever consequences came from them. Yes, it's sad that the kids would be going to foster care, but then again, that's not something that I'm responsible for. It's also hard for some of you to comprehend that my father is literally asking me to be a parent to his kids. Let's be very real and accept the fact that I would be taking care of the kids for a long time. All of the kids are under 12. The youngest one is 6. So I will be their parent and not just their guardian. They will be with me for well over a decade. This is not some short thing that I would be doing. I would basically be a full-time mother raising these children. Let's also not forget that there may be an angsty teenager in this mix. Like I said, his oldest kid is 12 and God knows what the boy is like. If he's anything like the teens in my neighborhood, I'll probably throw myself down the stairs within a month of taking him in. It's better that we spare each other that horrible experience altogether. I won't lie and say that I don't care about them. Again, the kids are blameless and are probably scared out of their minds with their only parent about to pass away. I feel bad for them and would like to do something to make sure they are taken care of. I don't know what I'll do now, but I guess I'll talk to someone and explore my options. Just to be clear, I will not be taking them in at all. That is not going to happen. I just want to help them without being completely responsible for them. If you have suggestions about that, let me know. I would like to hear some advice on what I can do. Hi, guys. I have an update for you. Although things haven't been settled yet, I had to make an update because I had to show that some of your suggestions are wild and won't be applicable in my case. 2 days ago, a caseworker showed up at my door. I don't have to give you any guesses about why the caseworker was there. It's about my half-siblings, of course. So as it turns out, my father had to be admitted to the hospital and it looks like he will be staying there for a while. He isn't doing very well, which he had already told me a few days ago. I mostly ignored him because I had no interest or need to know about his condition. Some of you have been really pushy about me making amends with my dad. I have also received some really weird private DMs where people have been downright aggressive in trying to get me to reconcile with my father. Their logic mostly has been that he is my father, so I should have some empathy for him. Well, spoiler alert, I don't. You guys need to stop reading fairy tales and stuff because that isn't going to happen here. People in my DMs and some of them in the comments have been trying to scare me by saying that I will regret not reconciling with my father once he passes away. Yeah. That's not happening either. He probably doesn't have long and I still don't have any wish to see him. Also, I think some of you haven't been reading my post properly because I already said that my father isn't interested in reconciling with me either. He just wants to dump his kids on me so that he can still pretend to be a good dad by making sure that he has someone to care for his kids. I'm not sure how he planned to explain that his eldest kid hadn't even seen him in a decade and had absolutely no relationship with his other kids. For the record, I was completely open to having a relationship with my half-siblings, but Dad shut that down even before my first half-sibling was born. I had tried telling my father that I wanted to have a relationship with his kid, but he said that he and his wife weren't comfortable with that and didn't want to confuse their child about who I am and why I don't live with him. Basically, they didn't want to look like villains when my half-siblings would ask why their eldest sister wasn't even in the picture. Anyway, sorry for going off track a little. I really thought I should put this out there because I am honestly tired of these texts painting me as a villain. So back to the caseworker with my father in the hospital. Someone who grew up and needed to take up the custody of the kids because they obviously can't be left alone. My father graciously gave CPS my name and told them all about how I was going to be the kids' guardian when he passed. So a caseworker showed up at my door and actually had the kids with her as well. When she told me what was going on, I straight up informed her about my situation and that I had repeatedly told my father that I wouldn't take care of his children. The caseworker actually sympathized with me, but said that this was going to be a problem because there was literally no one else to look after the kids. The CPS worker also didn't want to leave the kids with me because she understood that I was a literal stranger to them, and they confirmed it too. They were taken to one of my father's friends. I spoke to the caseworker later because I wanted to help the kids somehow, and I found out some interesting stuff. So even if my father named me as the legal guardian of the kids, there's no way they would allow all 4 kids to stay with me. I have zero experience in raising children and definitely don't have the means to look after all of them. So, yeah, those of you saying that I should be a bigger person, turns out I can't. Not going to lie, but it did make me relieved. But, again, I felt bad for the kids. I told the caseworker that I was open to the kids reaching out so that we could build a relationship. I mean, if my father isn't going to be there anymore, who will stop us from having a relationship? Sorry if I sound cruel. I'm just stating facts. The caseworker is a really nice lady, so she is going above and beyond to help. It's really nice to see that not all caseworkers are uncaring and nonchalant about these things. I haven't heard back anything from the kids yet and I'm not being too hopeful. It looks like there isn't much I can do to help them, but maybe there is a chance that the oldest kid would reach out. My father is still texting me, calling me names though. He's getting really crappy with the progress of his disease. I'm still ignoring him, but sometimes the name calling is becoming too much. I don't know how much longer he can keep up, though, since his health isn't the best right now. We will have to wait and see, I guess. If anything changes or happens, I will for sure make an update. You won't believe what happened a few days ago. I was extremely excited and wanted to be here sooner, but I got caught up with a few things. I know I kept you waiting, but I really had some pressing issues to take care of. So a lot of you were rooting for me and really praying that my half-siblings would want to connect with me out of their own will. I didn't mention it in my last post, but I was desperately hoping about that too. I don't know, guys. All these weeks made me really think about what life could have been like if I, at least, had a relationship with my half-siblings. I already told you guys that I'm a lonely woman and don't have much family left on either side. I really started to crave a relationship with my half-siblings. A lot of you had encouraged me to try and reach out to them to see if they were interested in building a relationship. I did want that, which was why I asked a caseworker to talk to the kids on my behalf. She did keep her promise and talk to the kids. Just 5 days ago, my half-brother Jamie, 12 male, reached out to me. He has his own phone and the caseworker had given him my phone number. He didn't call but left a message. I can't describe in words how happy I felt when I read those messages. We exchanged a few texts, but they were nothing interesting. It was just Jamie saying that he wanted to meet up with me and talk. I immediately agreed and we arranged a meeting. He's staying with my father's friend who turned out to be a nice man. He brought Jamie to meet me because he was unsure about me. Yeah, he didn't know about my father's eldest kid until CPS got involved. The man was as spooked as the kids were. Anyway, Jamie and I met up and talked. I had predicted that he didn't even know I existed. My father had pretty much gone no contact with me and my maternal side before Jamie was born. His own parents are dead and he doesn't have any siblings, so there was no one to tell Jamie that I existed. He vaguely knew about our father being married before but didn't know anything beyond that. Jamie said that he had been feeling pretty spooked ever since our father started to tell him and the other siblings about how they had a big sister who would take care of them. Jamie doesn't have any social media, so he couldn't really look me up. He had been downright scared of me until he saw me on the day CPS came knocking at my door. In his words, I seemed okayish, but a little panicked and edgy. That one actually made me laugh. We talked about a lot of things, actually. My father's friend, Sam, 52 male, also had some questions of his own that I happily answered. He is a decent man and my siblings love him a lot. Sam seemed really pissed off at my father after hearing the whole story from me. Jamie wanted to know it too, which is why I didn't really lie about what happened. I spared some details that might upset him, and I didn't want him to think that our father abandoned me for him. I simply told Jamie that our father didn't want to be in my life and refused to allow me to know him and the kids. Jamie got pretty quiet when he heard that. We didn't talk about the issue anymore because I didn't want to upset him. We did talk about meeting up again and agreed to have a relationship. He also said that he would gently introduce me to the other kids since they were younger. Jamie didn't want to spook them, which is why he had come alone. From what I have seen, he's a pretty mature kid for his age. I take back everything I said about teenage boys before. Jamie is way different than the ones I see. I'm kind of suspecting that he has been looking after the other kids for a while. I didn't pry too much because this was the first meeting, but I will ask him about it later. Right now, we talk on the phone every day and kinda keep each other updated on our daily lives. Jamie doesn't talk about our father and neither do I. Sam and I talk separately on the phone as well. He will be looking after the kids for the time being, but he cannot be in charge of them permanently. He has a disabled wife at home, so she can't exactly handle 4 kids while also looking after his wife. Tell him we'll try to convince my father to give up some information about the kids' maternal family members so that we can reach out to them and see if they want to take the kids. As far as I knew, they had been pretty active in my father's and his second wife's lives. I don't know what happened or why my father doesn't want them to have custody and stuff. That's something Sam and I are trying to figure out. I'm just concentrating on building a relationship with Jamie and making sure I am worthy, in his eyes, of being introduced to the younger siblings. I really hope that happens soon. That's all I have for you guys right now. I know that many of you have been mad at me. I'm going to sincerely apologize for being a horrible person who doesn't come back with updates soon. I'm so sorry it took me so long to write this update. I won't lie and say that I didn't have time. It's just that I wanted to give you guys an update once everything was settled for good. I know that it's been months already, but I promise you will like to know how things are right now. Let me just start from where I left off. Jamie and I kept talking while I also coordinated with Sam to find the kids' maternal family. After weeks of the cousin got us in touch with Jamie's mom's parents. They're not on social media, which was why we couldn't really find them. I didn't know them that well anyway since I only saw them at my father's house one time. I wasn't even invited to their wedding. They seemed like nice people even though I had met them just once. Anyway, we reached out to them and they agreed to take the kids in. They are in their 60s, but are healthy and wealthy enough to be able to care for the kids. We were also able to get the whole story from them about why they hadn't even been considered. Turns out, my father and his wife cut them off before their youngest child was born. It was some petty property dispute and was just a ridiculous reason for my dad and his wife to cut them out. Apparently, they wanted the grandparents to buy them a new house because the old one wasn't comfortable enough to raise 4 kids. The grandparents refused and were told that they had no access to the family for the foreseeable future. Hell, they weren't even allowed at Jamie's mom's funeral because my father held that grudge. I have no words to tell you how disgusted I was with that man. And I was right about Jamie. He was sort of being parentified by both my father and his wife. They kept having kids and kept ignoring the ones they already had, while also expecting the older kids to take care of the younger ones. Looks like my father and his second wife were a match made in hell. The kids my father abandoned me for didn't even have a good relationship with him because he didn't bother to fulfill his responsibilities as a parent. Things were so bad that none of the kids were interested in visiting our father at the hospital. He kept asking for them, but no one went. Jamie was exceptionally mad at his father for what he did to me. He's too young to understand parentification, so his anger is solely on the fact that our father hid me from them. He was also unhappy about his maternal grandparents being kept away from him and his siblings. Jamie had been asking our father and his mother why they couldn't visit their grandparents anymore. They simply said that the grandparents moved away and didn't want to visit or talk to them anymore. I can't believe how heartless my father and his second wife had been. I wish I had known all this sooner because I would have stepped in for sure. I'm trying to make up for it now. Dad is already out of the picture. I guess it's my way of saying that he has already passed away. He died alone and literally no one went to visit him. Jamie wasn't interested, and the other siblings had the same sentiment. My dad had been so emotionally absent that the younger kids didn't actually ask about much either. They were more attached to Jamie, to be honest. My father did have some friends, but none of them were interested in keeping in touch when they learned the truth about him from Sam. So, they didn't bother visiting him at the hospital either. I think my father stayed at the hospital for a total of 2 months. He did come home twice but had to be taken back within 3 days. He never stopped talking crap about me though. In fact, he even accused me of taking his kids away from him. How ironic, right? I guess in a way I did take the kids away from him, just not in the way that he would have liked. Speaking of the kids again, I forgot to tell you that I actually met up with the rest of my half-siblings. They were pretty shy and scared, so it took them some time to warm up to me. Jamie made things easy because they would talk about me to them and assure them that I was a good person. That boy is a real gem. The kids are living with their maternal grandparents now who have recently moved back to our city to make sure the kids don't have to relocate. They are also very warm and kind towards me and often call me over for family dinners because they want me in the kids' lives. I may have been resistant to the idea in the past, but I may just sign up to be the kids' guardian if their grandparents pass before they turn 18. To be honest, I feel like I have found a fresh lease on life because I'm working to better my life and also to make sure that I have the means to step in and take care of my half-siblings if it becomes necessary. I am glad that I got to have a relationship with them and I'm going to cherish this for the rest of my life.